his family. Long time ago, in a busy city called Ur, lived a man named Abram. Visual, gentle light appears around Abram. He looks surprised, but also curious. Voiceover sounds kind, but firm. They walked across deserts, climbed over hills, and slept under the big, open sky. It wasn't always easy. There were dusty roads and tired feet. God met Abram there again. God said, "This is it, Abram. This is the land I promised you. And not only that, but I'm going to make your family into a huge nation. So many people, they'll be like the stars in the sky." But Abram kept going, one step at a time, trusting that God was leading the way. Narrator: one day, God spoke to Abram. Imagined that he gave him an incredible promise for the future. Abram built altars to God, little reminders of how God had guided him and kept his word. God said, "Abram, I want you to leave your home, your family, your city, everything, and go to a new land." It might be trying something new, or being kind when it's hard, or even just trusting that everything will be okay. Abram shows us that when we trust God, even when we don't have all the answers, amazing things can happen. He stepped out in faith, and God faithfully led him every step of the way. "A land I will show you." He didn't know where he was going. He didn't have a map or GPS. But Abram, he trusted God. He believed that if God said it, it would be good. So, he packed up his entire life. His wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all his servants, and every single animal they owned. Visual: Abram looks thoughtful, then determined. He starts packing up. His wife Sarai and nephew Lot are helping, looking a bit confused but trusting. Show them camping under the stars. Show a sense of progress, but also the long distance. Narrator: now, put yourself in Abram's shoes. This was a huge ask. Visual montage of their journey. Show them walking through different landscapes. A dusty path, then a green valley, maybe a mountain pass. Narrator: and off they went. It was a long, long journey. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Visual: they finally arrive in a beautiful, lush land. Narrator: finally, after what must have felt like forever, they arrived in a beautiful new land. Visual: close up on Abram's face, showing peace and wonder. Then zoom out to show the vastness of the promised land. Narrator: Abram was amazed. He had left everything for an unknown adventure, simply because God asked. And God didn't just show him a new land. Visual: transition to a simplified animation of stars in the sky, then zoom in on one star, then it transitions back to Abram, looking thoughtful. Narrator: so, what can we learn from Abram's amazing adventure? Narrator: well, sometimes God asks us to do things that seem a bit scary or unknown. Visual: final shot of Abram standing confidently in the new land, looking towards the horizon. Text on screen: trust God. Narrator: what's one step of faith you could take today? Think about it. Hey friends, we all know that Abraham had big faith, and in this short video, I want to highlight what I believe is the greatest display of his faith in the Bible. For those of you who are listening, some of you might already know what I'm talking about, so bear with me as I share this. For those of you who don't know the story, let me just give you some backstory. So, Abraham was promised by God that he would have a son when he was 100 years old. And so he believed God and he trusted God, even though he was past the age of having children. And his wife, Sarah, was also very old. In fact, she was past her childbearing years, but because they both had big faith, they didn't give up on God's promise. Now, after a while, Sarah became pregnant and she gave birth to a son. And when she was giving birth to him, she said, "It is a son. God has laughed at me, and all who hear will laugh with me." And she called his name Isaac, which means laughter. Now, this was a son that God promised them, and so they were very happy that God fulfilled his promise. But there's more to the story. You see, when Isaac was weaned, so Abraham took him up to be offered as a burnt offering to God. I want you to pay close attention to the text here. It says that God said to Abraham, "Take your only son, your son, whom you love, and offer him as a burnt offering." Now, if you read the previous chapter, you would remember that God told Abraham that he was going to make a great nation from Isaac, from his son Isaac. And then right here, God is telling Abraham to kill Isaac, to sacrifice Isaac. So what does Abraham do? He gets up early, he takes 2 of his young men with him, and he takes Isaac, his son, whom he loves. And they all go over to the place where God told him to go. And it says here that Abraham took the wood for the offering and laid it on Isaac his son. And then he took the fire and the knife, and he started going up to the place where he was supposed to sacrifice Isaac, and Isaac, his son, was carrying the fire and the wood for the offering. Now, can you imagine the conversation between Abraham and Isaac as they're walking up to the place where they're going to sacrifice Isaac? What was Isaac thinking? How was he feeling? And what was Abraham thinking? What was going through his mind? And how did he explain to Isaac what was going on? We don't know the answer to those questions, but we do know that Abraham had big faith. And what I believe is the greatest display of Abraham's faith is right here in this passage. As Abraham lifted up his knife to sacrifice his son, an angel of the Lord called to him and said, "Do not lay your hand on the lad or do anything at all to him. For now, I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only one, from me." And when Abraham looked up, he saw a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram, offered him up for a burnt offering instead of his son. So what do you think? What stood out to you from this passage? And how would you describe Abraham's faith? Let me know in the comments section below. I hope this short video was an encouragement to you. If it was, give it a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.